Share. Oh, I need to. Okay, I think it's working. Can everybody see my screen?
Indeed.
Good. So, let's see. Are there any questions before we go with
What day do we have to turn the research paper in? I must have missed that.
Let's make that Saturday night at midnight. I need Sunday to start grading, but I want y'all to have like half of the weekend to work on it, and then I'll have half of it to grade it. So, as opposed to doing it in the middle of the week sometime.
And we turn it in on Moodle?
Yeah,
midnight?
I think I have a spot, but let's be sure. Okay, that I have figured out the Moodle machine correctly. Oops. Okay, this is 210. Okay, yes, here's the research paper between quizzes 6 and 7. If you don't see it, let me know and I'll call the tech support. They'll tell me what I did wrong. So Saturday midnight, upload it here. Now you don't have to wait till midnight. And frankly, if you decide to stay up all night working on it, I'm not going to be grading it right at midnight. So if you want to do it at dawn on Sunday, that's fine with me. I have seen a few dawns from the wrong side around writing papers myself. Oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, I put some extra credit. It will count as 100% on a bonus quiz, which will take out your lowest. So if your lowest quiz is a 20%, when I factor it in, it's not that the quiz will be gone, it just won't count in the formula on my spreadsheet. So do 2 of these and post them on, I think some of you have started already, on the, what do you call this, a forum? Yeah, extra credit forum. So don't miss out. Okay, no questions? Now, all my instructions are in the research paper section. Just the stuff I'm talking about is for 102. And so theirs is a 10-page, 10-source paper. Yours is a 5-page, 5-source paper. If you go over, that's fine, but most people don't want to go over. And that's one at least primary source. Primary is the story you're analyzing or poem or whatever. And then 3 good secondary sources from something like JSTOR, not Essays or Us, or Wikipedia, try to get a standard, scholarly analysis for your resources. You can find those other places than JSTOR, but just make sure they're quality sources and not just something you found at the top of your Google search. And then 1 quote from the Oxford English Dictionary, 1 definition, that is. All right, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so you said 5 sources throughout the whole paper, right? Not per paragraph.
No.
Okay. I was like, I thought you said per paragraph at first, and I was like, that's a little much. But okay.
Typically, I tell my students a couple of quotes, and they can be real brief from the primary source in the body. In the introduction, normally you don't have any quotes unless you're doing it for effect. But in the body, you work in a couple of brief quotes from, like the wife of Bath says, women want sovereignty. And then you can put that in quotes and spell it the old-fashioned way. And that's a quote. and a couple of quotes from different, total of 4 quotes per paragraph. That's a pretty well developed paragraph. We can see it in our sample research paper where he's mostly not doing that. You can tell this paragraph is going to be a problem because it's so short. And so he has 1 primary and 1 secondary source. So he needs 1 more of each. Here we've got Marvin, Vonnegut, and Marvin. So I think that's probably 4. I have to look at that last one because don't quote Vonnegut in Marvin, but if Marvin's adding something to Vonnegut, then yeah, you can put them both in one thing. All right, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You started clear on it and now everybody's confused. Ha! So yeah, I've got lectures on top of lectures. I would start with the thesis exercise if you're a little vague about that, because that exercise covers thesis statements and topic sentences. Bibliography, you can generate that at easybib.com and just download it and post it into your Word document when you finish. That's the easiest way to do a bibliography. All right, any more questions before we move on to Britlit? Okay. Let's see what's on tap for today. November 16th. We're getting close to the end. Okay, Romeo and Juliet. Oh, did we do sonnets? What are the sonnets? Let's do the sonnets first. I've lost Shakespeare. Here we go. Okay, so this is one of his straightforward love sonnets. Shakespeare's sonnets are difficult, especially compared to other sonnet sequences, because his aren't in a sequence. There's no plot. My professor that taught me the sonnet said it was like they had the, each sonnet on a page and dropped the pages and just raked them all together and published them in whatever form. And it may be even worse than that, because it seems like there are sonnets that aren't in, any logical connection to some of the other sonnets, whereas in a sonnet sequence, everything flows from sonnet 1 to sonnet 50 or 75 or 100, however many you have. Shakespeare seems to have written these on a number of subjects without thinking about how they interrelated with each other. So it would just be better to call it a collection of sonnets rather than a sonnet sequence. So remember how a sonnet works. It is 14 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this seems to be a traditional sonnet and not my made up royal sonnet of Queen Elizabeth. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. So 10 syllables. Normally in iambic pentameter, da, 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 da. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. Kind of works. Admit impediments. Love is not love. Okay, love is not love. That's clear. There's no other way than it's a trochee followed by an iamb. So I won't put a problematic line for you to identify on a quiz. It'll be a straightforward one. Okay, and then let's look at the rhyme scheme. So 10 syllables, half of 10 is 5. The Latin word for 5 is penta, so that's pentameter. And the ba-bop, 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 that rhythm is iambic. Whereas if it's on the downbeat, da-da-da-da-da-da, that's trochaic. And the great artists like Shakespeare don't need no stinking rules, so he'll break the rules when he feels like it. Okay, minds, love, finds, remove. It's nowadays a half rhyme. I don't know about 400 years ago. Minds, love, finds, remove, maybe. Mark, shaken, bark, taken. So it's A, B, C, D, C, D. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cheeks, come, weeks, dumb, doom, proved, looved. So E, F, G, G. So we have the octet, the sestet, 3 quatrains, and a couplet. How about that? Isn't poetry fun? Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. So what he's saying is that if it's real love, then as the person you love gets older and the hair goes gray, or in my case, falls out, well, if you really love me, you'll love my big old egg head in spite of my hair having fallen out. Because I had great hair when I was your age. I had disco hair, man. And that shit's gone. So yeah, true love will love you anyway because it loves the real inner you. So it's seeing love as more of a spiritual thing than a physical reaction to another person that you find attractive. Oh no, it is never fixed mark that looks on tempest is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark whose worth unknown, although his height be taken. So think of the North Star in the middle of the ocean, even in the middle of the greatest storm, the North Star is still there. So love is like that. It's our pole star. And bark is a metonym. Oh my goodness, we need PowerPoint. I think it's a metonym, and I need to fit the spelling. A word, name, or expression used as a substitute for something else with which it is closely associated. I thought so. So in this case, bark is a metonym for tree, which is a metonym for lumber, which is a metonym for a ship. You see how that works? So people will call, it's a poetic use of the word bark. I was sailing in my bark. Now, in the New World, there were birch bark canoes. That's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about a regular boat with regular timbers. But he's speaking of it poetically, and you're just supposed to understand, oh, bark, tree, lumber, ship. And also bark rhymes with mark, whereas tree or lumber or timbers or ship do not rhyme. So that's another reason to use bark here. loves, and so here we get to the sestet, which you expect, after 4 lines to change a bit after the next 4 lines. The first 4 lines, there are no impediments. An impediment is like a rock in your path as you're walking along that you trip over. Number 2, if it is not, there's no impediments. Instead, there's an ever fixed mark, and so there's 4 lines about that. Now we talk about our old friend, Tempus Fugit. But even though time flies, love does not fly. Not true love, not real love. Love's not time's fool, those rosy lips and cheeks with his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and week, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. And when you have Tempus Fugit in line 1 of these 4 lines, then you're not surprised at the end of line 4 to come to memento mori, our doom, our death, and yet even at the edge of death, we still love. Wow, that's pretty powerful stuff, right? If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ and nor no man ever loved. So this is his trip that he's laying down for real love, which we'll get back to in a minute. Okay, now this is one of his sonnets about his so-called dark lady. So-called because, well, this poem, she has a kind of dark personality, but also a dark complexion in a time where, the fairer you were, the better you were. Racism is not a new thing. It goes way back. And even within, like, if you're outside a lot and you get tan, ooh, that's not a good thing. You're ruining yourself. And this is a blazon. This is our longest blazon we've had since Song of Solomon. But this is an ironic negative blazon. He's dissing her, which generally, why would you do that? I guess they're not doing so well. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. So you should say, they dazzle me like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips should. And I think this is as much of a diss of the blazon as it is of his mistress. We've seen how quickly the blazon turns to, I can't believe they're still doing this. So I think it's more of a critique of the type of poem, and he's writing it in an ironic way to try to bring a little bit of freshness back to the blazon by making it ironic. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done, which is a dark color. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. So she's got wires coming out of her head. I have seen roses damasked red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And on some perfumes there is more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. Okay, so we talked about, how great it is when your lover has all their teeth and when their breath is fresh. I just, right before class, I brushed my teeth, even though I'm not near you, it's just force of habit. And also I go to the dentist regularly, so my teeth are all here, such as they are. They're not very white. I haven't had the Joe Biden blinding white, whatever he did to his teeth. I haven't had that done to mine. So in the Renaissance, you didn't bathe all that often, and so your body didn't smell all that great. And of course, you didn't really brush your teeth or go to the dentist, and so your breath reeked. And he's just being honest about it. Some perfumes smell better than the breath that reeks from her mouth I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. So she's not the angel choir singing in heaven when she talks. It's a funny thing. They've discovered that when men my age start to go deaf, the register we typically filter out first is that is used by women and children. You know, that range is the first range we go deaf in. And Shakespeare's like, finally, some relief. I'm going deaf. This is great. I grant I have never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads upon the ground. On the ground. So she doesn't float through the air like a goddess. She walks on the ground like a normal mortal. Yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with faults compare. So she's been comparing me to these other lovers, like Romeo and Juliet, and saying, why you're not like that? And he's, I want to think my love is great, honey. What are you complaining about? So in the language of the kids today, he's negging her as a way of beating her down and trying to get her to, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Well, there's a certain underpants gnomes to the men's movement stuff. Magic, and we make money. So there's some magic there. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's that she's not really his lover anymore. She's his ex. And so he's attacking her now that he can vent that frustration, Will. Okay, so this is possibly another Dark Lady poem. And in this situation, he's an old man with a certain amount of fame and money, and she's a young woman with a certain amount of beauty. And they have found each other. And it's one of those situations she would, ask, if I lost my beauty, would you still love me? And he's like, well, if I lost my money, would you still love me? It's a, what's the word? Transactional relationship, not the kind of love we talked about in the first sonnet. When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies, that she might think me some untutored youth, unlearned in the world's false subtleties. So she's lying to me, and I believe her, so she'll think me younger than I am, young and experienced. Yes, I am but a youth. And back then they had the wig, so if he was bald, it wouldn't matter. Thus vainly thinking that she thinks me young, so he's lying to himself that this will make him look young. Although she knows my days are past the best, simply I credit her false speaking tongue on both sides. Thus is simple truth suppressed. But wherefore says she is not, good grief, wake up, Bruce. But wherefore says she, not she, is unjust? And wherefore say not I that I am old? So why doesn't she say, I'm lying to you? And why didn't he say, I'm old? Oh, love's best habit is in seeming trust, and age in love loves not to have years told. So when we're in these relationships, we act like we believe each other, and we act like we're young and hot. Oh yeah, I like a guy with a pot belly and a lot of, just and no hair on his head. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Lie to me, just lie to me, please. Therefore I lie with her and she with me, and in our faults by lies we flattered be. When I was about your age, there was a song, Third Rate Romance, Low Rent Rendezvous. And they're both in the bar getting drunk, which is where this kind of operation happens. You don't look like my type, but I guess you'll do. Third-rate romance, low-rate rendezvous. And he said, I'll even tell you that I love you if you want me to. So if you want me to tell you I love you, I will, because that's the formula, right? Given to us by people like William Shakespeare. Wait, where's the rest of it? Yeah, I've never done this kind of thing before, have you? And he said, yes, I have, but only a time or two. So they're lying to each other, and they know they're lying. That's the thing. This isn't the kind of lie which somebody will later stand across the room and scream at you, you have ruined my life. This is the kind of lie we need to make this liaison work, because it's not based in love, it's based in lust. And so lust is all about the fantasy, not about the reality. All right, any questions? Well, I used to try to show Romeo and Juliet to my classes, and even when they were sitting in the class watching it, people would sneak out and fall asleep, the ones that were left. Nobody wants to watch this whole movie. So let's just watch the trailer for the one I happen to like. Oh, did I fix this right? Hold on. Yes, I did. Oh, not the trailer. I think this may be it.
Creative smarts. Simply enter your website. Get beautiful designs drawn from your brand.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life.
Watch NFL games live all season long with you.
All right. Now that's an opening scene, or what do you even call that? Prologue, yeah. And I'm gonna say, as much, this was in the 90s. I had had several classes in Shakespeare over the years at the time and had, been teaching for a while. And I never really got why the prince couldn't make the two families stop fighting. He's in charge of things, but he's not. They're basically mafia. This is where the mafia came from, Italy. And these are, not the prince, but they are dukes or whatever, and nobody's going to make them give up their grudge match. I mean, we live in a state where we have the dueling oaks, where young people, usually young, but not always, young men would go out to settle their affairs of honor in City Park in New Orleans, till kind of surprisingly recently. Yeah, and also this movie has energy. There's nothing worse to me than a boring Shakespeare movie. It just drags on and on. And this stuff, they were on ecstasy or cocaine. You know, it was like set in Miami, basically, Verona Beach, Miami Beach. And yeah, it's really hopped up, you know, like lots of energy in this particular Shakespeare production. Whereas when I watched the 60s Romeo and Juliet with Olivia Hussey, I know everybody loves that the most, but to me, it looks like, oh, well, they were on lithium or something. I don't know. It's a real mellow kind of, for a tragedy where everybody ends up dead. You'd think there'd be a little more energy to it. So yeah, I like they kept the words. What I hate is when they ditch the words, because then it's just, Shakespeare got his stories from elsewhere. Even this one is kind of made up, but it's based in a earlier story, probably. Let's see if I spelled that right. Paolofrancesc. Wow. So, maybe there's yes. Paolo was the younger brother of, whoever his older brother was. I can't remember his name. His older brother was kind of a brute. He was ugly, he was mean. And so his older brother sends him to bring his wife home, his new bride. And on the way, as they traveled, they fell in love. And so as they read a story, and I can't remember, maybe Lancelot and Guinevere. Anyway, they kiss, and in some versions take their clothes off, and the brother comes in and runs his sword through both of them with one blow. So they both die, and according to Dante, go to hell, where they are blown around by the winds of lust in hell. Not the worst place in hell. Lust is not that bad a sin compared to the other 7 deadly sins, but it's still deadly. And this is Dante and Virgil. Okay, so why does Shakespeare change it? Because, you've got Italy, you've got jealousy, you've got tragedy, but with them you have adultery. And Shakespeare is trying to bring romantic love under the mantle of marriage. This is kind of a novel concept. And it seems to be in the air. As bad as the Puritans were, in a lot of ways, they pushed the idea of the companionate marriage, which is the idea that your wife isn't just there to bring you a beer and fix your supper, and the husband's not there just to plow the field. They're there as companions to each other. It's supposed to be a loving relationship. Now, it also, it elevates the idea of marriage, but it also creates difficulty when that is not fulfilled. And the reason a lot of people wind up getting divorced is they're expecting something like this, soulmates. Ah, yes, here we go. Go Plato on it. So in Plato, one of his guys tells a story in one of his dialogues about humans being originally having 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads. They were just too mighty. The gods became jealous and fearful because we had it all. And so they chopped us in half so that each individual has an arm, 2 arms, a head, 2 legs, and half a soul, basically. And you're in this life continually hunting that other half. There's a whole TV series about that now. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the computers will match you up with your soulmate. Well, what if there were twins? Or 2 soulmates. Anyway, it's a romantic idea that you will find this other person and they will complete you in a way that no other individual in the world can complete you. And that's kind of the debate with Romeo. He switches easily from Rosalind over to Juliet. He just, when we're meeting, he's totally in love with Rosalind. By the end of that night, that same night, he has totally forgotten her. So that's kind of the rashness of youth. Juliet, on the other hand, once she has pair bonded with Romeo, and he's exiled, and they present him the option of marrying Paris. And her mother's for it, even the nurses for it. She says, he's handsome, he's nice, he's rich. Yeah, you can learn to love him. Would it kill you to fall in love with somebody who's rich and that has your parents' approval? Also in Romeo and Juliet, we see a shifting. Shakespeare, for the most part, celebrates love celebrates marriage that comes from a love of some kind. They may not get along at first, but eventually they fall in love. That's fairly standard in movies even till this day. But typically they're marrying out of love. The other reason to marry, besides pregnancy, is your dad picks out, your dads work it out. So we can assume that Juliet's father has been in contact with Paris's father, and my daughter's of a marriageable age, close. He thinks she's still too young, probably 13, 14. But that wouldn't stop them from being engaged, and then they can be married down the road. So engagement's a big step along the way. We'll get them engaged, then we'll get them married when it's time. But you'll notice the difference in the system, because when Romeo wants to be with Juliet, he woos Juliet. He doesn't come through the front door and meet the dad. Nice to meet you, sir. And ask permission. No, he comes around back, climbs up the window, or climbs up the lattice to the window, and woos her directly, which is what they're afraid of. Paris does it the right way. When he comes he courts the father. Almost every time you see Paris, he's with the dad wooing him and not Juliet. And this was a tradition almost to modern time, maybe, until fairly recently. Yes, here we have the Godfather. Michael is on the lam in Italy, and he meets this beautiful girl. Not meets, he sees her. And they go to the restaurant in town and start talking about this beautiful girl in a purple dress. The restaurant owner just throws a fit because he realizes it's his daughter. He thinks they're dishonoring her. And Michael calls him back. I'm sorry, I'm an American. I don't mean any disrespect. And I would like to, under your approval and with your supervision, meet her. And if it's all suitable, I'll marry her. And so he does it the old world way.
Football season is here, and so is the NFL Network on YouTube TV.
We hide hotel names, so you can score 4-star hotels at 2.
Go away. Oh, wait. This.
Luce la luna in cielo e io luce d'amore.
Okay, so here he's meeting the family.
Fuoco che si consuma come lume cori.
And there's the girl, 20 yards away. Finally, after lunch. Oh, this is where they meet.
Non si da pace, ma chi
Ooh, Thunderbolt. Okay, so they have it both ways. He has the Thunderbolt. He sees her. He falls in love. I wanted to see the table. It's here. We don't see it all. It's a long table. Michael's at one end of it. Apollonia is at the other end of it. Occasionally they'll wave at each other. When they walk after lunch, you just see them walking up the hill. And then here comes a dog, and here comes a kid, and here comes an aunt, and here comes the whole family, because they are chaperoning. They take that role super seriously because they want to make sure that she is a virgin on her wedding day. It's the whole thing. And after the wedding, it's up to him to keep an eye on her. You know, now it's his job, not theirs. But until then, they're going to make sure that he doesn't get anywhere close to her. Yeah, he has the romance. He has the Thunderbolt, the love at first sight. But then he comes around to the front door and knocks on it and makes the deal with the father. Romeo skips all that. And in my opinion, the most unrealistic thing about this whole story is the idea that the families would make up after the two children died. I think it would make them even more mad. In cases like this, where the woman would run away with the young man, her family, her father and brothers would, argue over who was going to be the one to get to kill them. We have a word for that today. Honor killings, where basically it's the men in the family kill the women who have unapproved sex of any kind. So even if they get married, we didn't approve of it, so we're going to kill you and the husband, maybe. Sometimes they'll kill the husband. Also, certain countries, they have this bad habit of throwing acid in a woman's face. It's just really ugly stuff. It's an element of toxic masculinity and patriarchy. You would associate your honor as a family with the women not having the sex. Back in Rome, the word virtus comes from the Latin word vir, which means a man, and so virtus is manliness, literally. That's what it means literally before it meant virtue in general. And so it was applied to what women did. by this point, we see them applying the idea of virtue to what women don't do as opposed to what men do. So they've kind of lost the thread somewhere along there. Let's see, do I have the priest? Oh, so there is a tragical history of Romeo and Juliet. Does that still work? So is the guy a priest or is he a brother? I think he calls him his father, so we'll call him a priest. Friar Lawrence, that's a brother. Okay, I was right. So priest is a little different from a friar, and I can't spell. There we go. Okay, so Friar Lawrence is trying to be the voice of reason, but you've got to wonder, what was this guy thinking? I think he's trying to make the best of a bad situation. He tells them straight up, these violent delights have violent ends. And so a love which is so violent, it's like gunpowder being touched by a flame. It explodes and then is gone. And especially the idea that this morning you were in love with Rosalind, tonight you're in love with Juliet. And so there's this ancient Greek idea that love is a disease, a nosos, that it can kill you. And so you want to moderate its influence. I think that's what Friar Lawrence says, right? Therefore, love moderately. These violent delights have violent ends and in their triumph die like fire and powder. There we go, fire and gunpowder, which as they kiss consume. The sweetest honey is loathsome in his own deliciousness. So honey, too much honey is cloying. You know, you don't want to just sit there eating honey, at least I don't. And in the taste confounds the appetite. Therefore, love moderately. Long love doth so, too swift arrive, as tardy as too slow. So the idea of moderation is at the heart of the ethics of Greece and Rome in their philosophies. They have a bunch of philosophies. They have a lot of different views on stuff. Everybody agrees in moderation. You love moderately, you don't love extremely. Or you do anything moderately. That was Aristotle's ethics. For Aristotle, ethos is where we get the word ethics, is a habit. And so you want to cultivate good habits of character. And he uses the image of the target practice. Here we go. So when you hit the bullseye, that's good. That's what you want from your ethos. But if you miss, he calls it hamartia, which the Bible translates as sin, but he doesn't quite see it the way Christians see sin, which is rebellion. Here you just missed because you weren't able to aim better. And so what is the solution? To keep trying. And so if you hit the bullseye in the area of courage, that means you have just the right amount of courage. It's the Goldilocks principle. If you miss over here and don't have enough courage, you're a coward. If you miss over here and have too much courage, you're rash. Either way, you get your friends killed by being too hasty in battle or too slow in battle. You've got to be with your friends when they fight, and that's what courage is about. And that's true of love and any other virtue, that it is a virtue that has to be practiced in moderation. Not too much, not too little. So Romeo and Juliet, you sound crazy. You're talking about killing yourselves. You're talking about running away. You're not getting your parents' approval. What am I going to do? These kids, these crazy kids, they're so crazy these days. So finally he says, I know, I will marry them off. That will fix things. Which to me, I mean, they've got love as an excuse. They've got teenageship as an excuse. This guy's like my age. He should know better. But he comes up with crazy plot that if they get married, then the families will have to come together. And as we just talked about, anybody that knows anything about Italian culture in the medieval era or the Renaissance era knows that it would just make them kill the kids and be that much angrier at each other. My Juliet was good until your Romeo spoiled her. Well, my Romeo was fine with Rosalind until Juliet seduced him. And so that would be the reason for the next fight. Now, in traditional upper class subcultures, typically the wife and the husband, because they're rich and they have stuff to do, like sit on the veranda or whatever it is which people do to while away the idle hours. They don't want to be taking care of babies, so they'll get a nurse, possibly originally a wet nurse, which means she had just had a baby herself and she could nurse young Juliet. But she stayed with the family over the years and is basically what we would call a governess. And in these upper class families, they keep a close eye on their women to make sure that they don't go around men. The servants of the family, though, both the men and the women, would come and go as needed. And so the nurse becomes the go-between for Romeo and Juliet to help set things up. And this is not unusual in comedies going all the way back to ancient Roman Greece, to have the nurse be the maid, as it were, to be the go-between. Ovid talks about it, for example, in The Art of Love. If you want to seduce the lady, become friends with the maid, but not too good of friends, because if you have sex with the maid, she'll be too jealous and won't help you with the lady. So first you have sex with the lady and then with the maid. That's Ovid. Okay, so something else we could mention. Familia. The social organization that we see here is rooted in the extended family, and it's not so much like your nuclear family sitting around the table having supper, mom, dad, 2.5 kids. No, this is more like the familia of the Godfather shows, where it's the patriarch of the family ruling over the family fortune. And they've got sons, they've got daughters, they've got in-laws, they've got cousins. It's just a much broader organization because occasionally the familia goes to war. The vendetta. Now, the social system that eventually emerges to counter this and try to deal with this is the polis, or the city-state, which supersedes family. And when families get into arguments, you go to court or you go to the prince and they will settle things down. But it's not like the family goes out of existence. And part of the way that the polis works is by us being willing to give up the vendetta, to give up the personal vendetta. And one way the state encourages us to do that is by locking people up and executing them. In our own country, the Hatfields and McCoys were a famous, extended families, not, just mama, pa, and the kids, but all the kin. And they were killing each other until the government came in and started putting them in jail, and then they settled down. So at this point, the prince is weak enough that he's rather ineffective. He's unable to achieve an end to, he's able to exile, but they don't take him seriously enough to stop when he tells them to stop. So they've got a state in theory, but it's not functioning. So it falls back on that. Imagine, if you watch The Godfather, the other family tries to kill Vito Corleone. Shooting, he doesn't die, they have him in the hospital. Well, do the Corleone family, do they go to the police and say, we suspect this person and we want you to arrest them? No. We're going to handle this ourselves, old school, vendetta style. And so there's blood in the streets, right? They're shooting each other all over the place because they don't recognize the authority of the state over them. They're an authority unto themselves. Their highest loyalty is not to the polis, it's to the family. When Michael comes in at the beginning, he's seen as kind of a turncoat because he fought in World War II. Why would you do a patriotic thing like that? That's for suckers. I mean, Donald Trump says the same thing, right? Why would you do this? This is for suckers. Your first loyalty is to the familia. And they don't mind killing people. They don't mind being killed, but it has to be over family, honor, and fortune. And so that's the world of Romeo and Juliet as well. That this vendetta between the two families, they're powerful enough that they don't have to listen to the prince, and they can carry on their own. And the state kind of winks at it, knows it can't do much about it. And early on, it wasn't just Louisiana, right? We had duels and feuds taking place all over. Hatfields and McCoys are far away. We live right close to Claiborne Parish, and there was a big feud out from Minden, I think. Or maybe it was Homer. Anyway, it was out in the country in that area. And the state of Louisiana and the federal government were not quite strong enough to put it down. Eventually, one of the families was losing, and they all left and went somewhere else. And that was what ended the feud. And that's the problem with the vendetta. There's no logical conclusion until one family or the other is dead. And so they stay at the end that the feud is over. Come back in a year or two and see how that's working out. There may be some fresh mutiny that comes forth the way it does at the beginning. I don't know, that's kind of the high points. Do y'all have anything you want to ask about Romeo and Juliet? Our discussion? All right. Did I tell any group I needed to start with you today? Somebody was talking to me over the weekend, but I don't remember what class. Let's see if our chat has a hint. No, it's not due yesterday. That would be bad. You all failed. No, you don't. I'm joking. You're going to be fine. Just don't copy somebody else's work. As long as you're in there, even if you mess up, you're not going to get that bad a grade unless you cheat. So don't cheat. All right, any questions about, so nobody remembers talking to me over the weekend about getting your group? All right, I'll just come around randomly then. We have what, 12 groups? I'm going to stop the recording now.